What's up guys, it's Justin here, and today I'm here to talk about some of the new camera gear that we picked up. I know a lot of you always ask about the behind the scenes and kind of what gear we use, what our workflow is like. So I decided to do a 3-part series where I talk about some of the new gear and why I decided to go with which item. I also do a camera bag video, and lastly, kind of a behind the scenes of how we film a video from start to finish. If you guys haven't subscribed already and are excited for some upcoming content that is shot in 4K, both in the lifestyle, tech, and fashion field, make sure you subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. If you guys want to learn more about anything, go ahead and check the link down below because I have a list of kind of the gear we use and what we use to produce our videos. So just a bit of a history, the past 8 years I've definitely switched cameras a lot of times. I started out with the iPod Touch 4th generation and ended up going with a Sony NEX3, followed by the Canon T3i, a Canon camcorder, even a Canon 70D, 6D for a bit, Panasonic GH4, the G7, and also the GH5, the Sony a7S II, a7R II, FS5, a6300, and now we've ended up back in the Canon ecosystem, and that is the Canon 1DX2, and we actually picked up 2 of them, with one that is filming right now and the secondary one right here. The reason why I decided to go back with Canon is the fact that I'm not someone who really likes to color grade footage that much. I'm not the best at it either. So Canon kind of has the best out of camera color from my experiences, and I was already using Canon lenses, so it all just sort of made sense. The Canon 1DX2 is able to do 4K video recording at up to 60 frames per second. I typically shoot at 24, but for any slow motion recording, 60p is really useful, which is something that I really enjoyed on the Panasonic GH5, but it obviously does look better on the Canon 1DX2. And if you really want to push the slow motion, the 1DX2 also does 120 frames at 1080p. The autofocus is also one of the best in the industry with the dual pixel that you also find on the 70D and 80D, along with the 6D2 and 5D4. And the touch of focus is also something that I find myself using quite often, and the Panasonic GH5, as much as I loved it, just didn't really have good autofocus, and that was something that I found myself using a lot when it came to run and gun recording. Another reason why I decided to go with the Canon 1DX2 is because I do take photos for Instagram as well, and that is something that I sort of needed. And before, I was carrying the Canon 6D2 because of its full frame sensor, as well as a GH5 body for video, so it kind of just made sense to merge everything into one body. I know a lot of you guys are also probably wondering as to why I didn't just go with the Canon 5D Mark IV, which is a lot cheaper. The reason why is because I do want to use 120 frames at 1080p, and the fact that the crop is almost 2x on the 5D4 is just something that I really wasn't able to get used to even after trying it. So 4K recording on the Canon 1DX2 is 1.3 crop, I believe, and it is pretty manageable. Obviously, there are a few things that I don't like about it already though, and that is the fact that the file size is massive. I think it's about 500 megabits per second, and with that, you have to use some CFast cards, which are just so expensive for what they are, and they don't really hold nearly as much footage as I'm used to. Thankfully, SanDisk did provide us with their CFast cards though, which are very reliable in both the 128 and 256 gig option. And for those who are wondering, at 24 frames per second in 4K, we're able to get just about an hour of footage in total. Although we have used the Canon 1DX2 for a few videos now, there's definitely a lot to get used to, and that is something that will hopefully improve in the next few months. As for some of the lenses that we decided to go with, for many years now I've already been using Canon mount lenses, and particularly Sigma, the 18-35, the 50mm, as well as the 12-24, and also the 24-35mm f2. After switching to Canon camera bodies though, we decided that it probably made sense to switch over to the L line as well, and for a couple reasons. Even though Sigma lenses are amazing, I felt that the Canon colors were just a little bit better, and the residual value of Canon lenses is also great as well, so if we ever changed our mind, it was very easy to. The first lens that I picked up is the one that you guys are watching this video on right now, and is probably the best all-purpose lens, and that is the 24-70 Mark II lens at an f2.8 aperture. This lens is great for both photo and video because it has a decent range and a pretty low f-stop for most things that you're going to need. So that is pretty much why I'm using it right now for A-roll, because if we ever have to crop in and zoom out, it just makes things easy, but I try not to use it at the 24mm because it does have a pretty big barrel distortion. The second lens that I picked up is a 16-35 Mark I lens, and this is the first generation f4 with IS. The reason why I didn't go with the second or third generation is because IS was very important to have on at least one lens, because the Canon 1DX2, as nice as it doesn't have any in-body stabilization, which is something that I do miss from my GH5. The IS on this lens allows us to use this camera in run and gun situations where we might not have the gimbal or don't really want to carry it. So the quality is overall pretty good. It's a sharp lens and it has a nice wide angle at 16, but once again, barrel distortion was also an issue. In my case, I don't really like to carry that many lenses because I simply won't use many of them, so I think having a bit of diversity in your lineup in terms of both f-stop and some with and without IS is just very important. So before we move on to the next product, I wanted to give a huge thanks to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare, which is something that you guys have seen me talk about in the past. So for those who are wondering, I actually never went to school for photo or video. I just kind of started making videos back when I was 12 or 13, and the best place to learn, in my opinion, is online, because you don't really have to sit through a long course of stuff that you don't really care about, but instead are able to find a topic that you specifically want to focus on and get better at. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in design, business, technology, and more. And the premium membership gives you unlimited access to high quality classes on must-know topics so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. I think for a lot of you guys who are looking to start on YouTube now, a hard thing is trying to learn camera settings on a camera like a DSLR. Whether it's a starter DSLR or a 1DX2, there's definitely a lot of settings and camera rules that you might want to know before you start filming video in order to get the best quality content possible. Skillshare has classes for that, and the best thing is that you can learn it at your own pace. Make sure you go ahead and check out the link and coupon code on screen, because the first 500 can get up to 2 months free of unlimited video and photo classes. You really can't go wrong with a free trial, and I'm going to leave a link to everything down below. The third lens that I picked up in the upgrade was a 100mm f2.8, and this is a lens that also has IS, and it is a macro lens, so it is a lens that doesn't really get used a lot, but when it does get used, I think it looks incredible. If you guys see this watch footage here, the amount of background separation and compression you get out of a 100mm macro is so nice. Out of all the lenses that I picked up, I think this one focuses the slowest, but like I said, it is one of those lenses that is good at one thing, but not exactly something that you're going to find yourself using every day. The 7200 is definitely a great lens that could almost serve the same type of purpose as a 100mm for product videography, but it is a lens that is huge, it's heavy, and I just don't think I'd bring it anywhere, so I decided to go with the 100mm, and it's also like half the price. The last lens that I picked up is probably the one I'm going to try to use the most, and that is a 35mm lens at an f1.4 aperture, and this is the second generation. So this is one of Canon's newest lenses with the BR glass coating, and from what I've heard, Canon has put all of their glass technology and what they've researched and kind of the latest stuff all into this lens, and the price point was kind of insane, but I decided that over the long run it was worth it over the Sigma line because everything else that we kind of gone with was already the Canon L line. This is definitely a lens that for photography is a great focal length at 35mm, which is apparently what the human eye can see. So if you're doing portrait outfits and stuff like that, streetwear, then the 35mm is a great focal length at full frame, but for video this kind of serves more as a 50mm. If you guys are also wondering how we get to shoot at a low aperture in bright situations or even outdoors, it's because we have an ND filter, and the one that we use is called the Tiffin Natural ND, and it is a single stop, 6-stop, and it allows us to most of the time shoot at a decent shutter speed at even f1.8. I used to have the variable ND from Tiffin, but I just found that the colors just look like crap, so I stopped using them. So that is definitely something that I recommend avoiding, and if you're willing to spend the extra money on a single stop ND that you think is a good range based on what you film, then I definitely recommend that. Another piece of gear that we also picked up this month is a Zhiyun Crane 2. So one of the things that we really want to do is more lifestyle, travel related videos, and with a camera that doesn't have in-body stabilization, and with many lenses that have a lower f-stop that don't have IS, it's really hard to get nice and stable cinematic footage just out of camera, so we needed a gimbal that was able to support the weight of the 1DX2. The Zhiyun Crane 2 is able to support the weight of the 1DX2 and a 24-70 lens, no problem, which is kind of my heaviest setup, and it works amazingly well, if you guys can see from the footage here. You also have the option to control the camera directly from the remote as well, and there is also a follow focus that can be installed if needed. With the 1DX2, the autofocus through tracking works very well, so we didn't really need to use a follow focus that much, and by just touching the subject and learning how to use the gimbal effectively, we were able to get great video quality and a very cinematic professional look. The battery life is really great, and it is actually one of the few setups that is able to hold the full weight of the 1DX2. Another big piece of our upgrade is also the lighting. So lighting is something that I normally don't really care about at all for many years. I didn't want to spend money on lighting, I didn't want to set it up or carry it, but Aperture one day sent over an email and wanted to send their latest and greatest lights, including their 120D light, which is a light that has been kind of the industry standard for a nice portrait light, and I think Peter McKinnon also recommended it, and that is a light that I have right here, and its main purpose is as a key light, which has great colors, and it also actually diffuses the light very well with the double diffuser dome that we use, which gives it an overall very nice and natural daylight look. and let's just go ahead and show you guys what it looks like with and without the light. So this is with it on right now at about 25% because we do have daylight coming in from this side, but here it is without the light. So as you guys can see, it is much darker, and if we turn on the light again, it really does fill in the daylight perfectly. So that is what it looks like on. The other pieces that Aperture also sent were some LED panels that we used both to fill in the wall on the sides and also just a fill light in the back for the ceiling. And those lights match perfectly with the colors of the C120D, which is our main light. So the overall 3-point lighting kit just worked very well, and I'm so happy that I gave it a chance to test out. As you guys can probably see here, this is kind of an overkill setup for YouTube, but a lot of the videos that we want to produce in the future are kind of lifestyle with tech, some fashion, and also a bit more travel vlogs, which I've kind of tried to do in the past but never really went into. I know when I asked you guys over on Twitter and in the comment section, you guys just really want to see more travel vlogs and cinematic videos that also involve tech and streetwear. I recently did hire a full-time videographer, Nick, who is sitting over there right now, and together we're going to try to produce content at a much more consistent basis and at a higher quality for you guys. We decided that this gear right here, the Canon 1DX Mark II, will at least be kind of our main pieces for the next couple years, being able to produce the best video and photo that we can while on the go. Otherwise, if you guys have any questions, as always, make sure you drop a comment down below, and I'll see you all in the next one.